if I was to talk really about how do we turn principles into practice, then there are some very interesting areas. We're trying to stimulate higher performance from the market. We're trying to stimulate higher performance from our own people. And we want that performance improvement. The one you talked about extensively at the end there, around good information, good people, the right time to take good decisions. So whether they are people who are on the client side, or whether in the supplier side, whether they're employees or civil servants, or in local government or in business, how do we get more out of people? And one of the extraordinary spaces that we have not explored in the UK, for some historic reason that would be a whole another subject mark for another evening, is around the use of codes and principles of good practice. What does good look like? So can we capture that and roll that out? Again, UK is a thought leader in what good business standards look like. So we think of areas like care homes or the health sector, or HR value management, or organizational governance, all sorts of areas where actually shaping good practice in an entirely voluntary way stimulates that second dimension of the employees, the market, the consumer push, if you like, who are aspiring. They want more choice from their care homes, they want more performance from their health service, but they want to do that in a voluntary way. So we're separating out the concept of minimum legal requirement from business standard performance. I would really encourage us, not in this debate, but in future, to drive your line down more steeply, to try and get more value from our public spend, to see the opportunity of voluntary codes of practice around business performance in a wide range of sectors, in education, in health, in business, in the financial services area, and indeed in government, to stimulate us to be better leaders, and to develop our talent more effectively, and to be more successful as organizations. Principles are standards. The only thing that's standard about a national or international standard is the way we make it.
I really had seen how, as in fact Julian described, in terms of the standard financial accounting, government really was at top of its game and somewhere close to being world class. Publishing accounts on time, compliance with IFRS, etc. But if anything, my concern was that was all very well around the external published accounts, the audit and, if you like, that side of things, and indeed consolidation across government. What was lacking was a focus on some of those things which are much more about value, the use of the balance sheet, and the way that, in fact, management accounting principles could help certainly our government, if not more generally across public sector and governments worldwide, take the next big step. We have published global management accounting principles, and I think these are entirely fit to be adopted by public or private sector, and indeed we very much encourage UK government to adopt the global management accounting principles and roll those out across departments. Had I remained in my role, I'd certainly be looking at this document in terms of principles into practice as a means of benchmarking my own finance function, having a discussion with, in effect, the Chief Exec, but the Permanent Secretary, about where we needed to improve and check marking those off. And actually I did find myself referring to the global management accounting principles that we launched and said, look, I think you should be looking at this document. If you are thinking of restructuring, as indeed you need to, you certainly need some principles by which to do that, is to have a vision of where you see finance supporting and indeed helping lead the organisation. That you need yourself to be a leader in that organisation and to be a leader of the finance function. And indeed to get the capabilities and competencies that you need or you think you need, and indeed there's a shortfall to some extent there. And again, coming right back to perhaps where I started, global management accounting principles really is a good starting point. So he's gone off to look at those.
The particular example was about the new, well, really the reversal of all the principles of English law as they apply to the directors of banks. Because all that stuff about, you are innocent until you're proven guilty has been overturned. And you're put before a court where the investigator and the judge and the jury and the sentencing agency are all one. So a lot of law has been, that we've long fought for and cherished, has been thrown away. And the observation that was made was if you look back to something like the Cadbury Principles, how much more powerful were they than this detailed regulation that's coming out all the time, that takes away any discretion, that doesn't leave one able to adapt to one's circumstances, that comply or explain. Yeah. Those principles have stood British industry well, as you were saying, and I would urge you to think about that before, as we reflect on principles and putting them into practice. Empowering people and informing people and helping them be in a position to make their own sensible decisions rather than clamping them down, killing all discretion and trying to pretend that every situation is the same is a good way forward.
You asked about social value. I mean, one of the responsibilities incumbent upon people like me, officials and civil servants, is to try and go and understand what is the value that is delivered by different programs. And we're publishing research all the time about, I don't know, how successful is a certain program in getting people back into work. We're publishing research all the time on how successful is a given intervention in reducing reoffending. So, we're thinking all the time about value in some sort of output and outcome sense.
Our reason for adopting global management accounting principles rather than standards, and we had quite a long debate about that, was very much following the suggestion that the success of Cadbury in terms of outlining a high level of principles which then allow innovation and organisations to move forward within those principles. And the key principles that we identify are having the right data, the right analysis, the right communication, and all of that is delivered with integrity, absolutely critical. And so ultimately, as Keith said earlier, it's a basis for benchmarking the finance function.